Hi, this is Mike from Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and on today's video we'll be taking a look at the new and improved Kolink Phalanx version 2. Keep watching to find out more. Okay, so in today's video we're taking a look at a new case from Kolink. This is their Phalanx, or Phalanx, I'm not entirely sure how you pronounce it, Phalanx version 2. Version 1 was very similar, but this has been upgraded with a few new modern features and also includes a whole ton of addressable digital RGB fans, which is a pretty nice addition, in my opinion. You know me, I do love my digital RGB. So anyway, this case is a full ATX case, and it will take motherboards EATX, micro ATX, standard ATX, and ITX, should you feel the desire to do so. I personally wouldn't, but again, everyone's got their own choices and what they want to do. So this gives you lots of flexibility. You've got tons and tons of options for cooling. So on the front, we've got three 120mm fans included as standard. These are digital RGB fans. Also, on the back, you've got a single 120mm RGB fan. Now the RGB fans are really cool. They've got like a dual light loop. So in the middle, you've got 8 addressable RGB lights. And on the outside edge, you've got 16 addressable RGB lights. So giving you tons and tons of combinations for different lighting styles. Now the lighting styles are taken care of by an option of various ways of doing it. There is a included remote controller. There is also a hub built in to synchronize everything. And also you can connect it up to your motherboard's digital RGB connector to have full control. And this has been upgraded now to include also some of the older Gigabyte boards with an additional connector. So all pretty good there. Case construction, as you can see, is a combination of both steel, aluminium, we've got some brushed aluminium, and also we've got a tempered glass side panel, which is all those usual things that we expect to see. This is what I would call a semi-mesh front. So we've got this section here, which is mesh, which is going to give you a pretty decent amount of airflow, and you do have these extra bits on the side. So if you're not really one of those full mesh people, and you do like to have a little bit of something on the front just to protect it and also to stop loads and loads of dust getting in, this is a pretty good combination in my opinion. If we take the front panel off, we'll take a closer look at the insides and see what's going on behind there. The front panel is quite easy to take off. Literally there's a grab handle on the bottom, so just grab it and pull it off. And it comes off with a reassuring click. So taking a close look at the front panel, unfortunately the front panel does pick up quite a lot of fingerprints. So this brushed aluminium effect does pick up your fingerprints, so obviously do be careful with that. But as you can see, you've got this really nice mesh section, which is pretty open, so that is going to allow a pretty decent amount of airflow. I would have liked to have seen a version of this actually with a full fronted mesh system, but maybe that's something to work on in the future. But actually I think this looks pretty good, and also the side panel is all completely solid. This is metal put on top of a plastic frame, as you can see, and also there is a filter in here, so that's nice and easy to clean out should you need to. Taking a closer look at the front section, so we've got these three 120mm Kolink fans. These are wired up into the hub, so there is a 6-pin connector on there which goes into their hub, which we'll see a little bit later on. But it's all designed to keep things nice and simple. So you've got one wire coming from each fan. You can, if you want to, you can actually take these fans out and replace them with 140mm fans if you wanted to. But to be honest with you, I think at this kind of price point, really you're probably best off sticking with the fans that are included. And talking of price points, at the moment in the UK, this is retailing on overclockers.co.uk for £79.99. You can pick it up also in the EU for around about €85, and in the US you're looking at $99. I'll put all the links for this in the video description below so you can check out your local pricing. So going back to the fans, again, you've got the addressable RGB around the outside edge, and also you've got an internal illumination as well. I'll try and throw in some B-roll so you can see what this actually looks like in action. We will be going through later and putting a power supply in here just to get it all up and running so you can see what it actually looks like. We won't be doing a build in this at the moment. I am planning on doing a live build in the next few days, so if you want to make sure you watch that and see how it goes, don't forget to click on the subscribe button and the chime icon, and you'll be notified of all our future video releases. So moving around to the side panel. So this is actually something I really like to see these days. This side panel has been done very well. It's been engineered excellent. I've got no qualms with this whatsoever. So you've got a combination here of thumb screws at the front to keep things nice and steady. You've also got a pull tab to open up the side window, and also you've got these really nice hinges on the back there. So all you need to do is take out the thumb screws, which is a pretty straightforward thing to do. Another thing I've noticed actually on the grommets, which are actually underneath these thumb screws, they are kind of double-sided and they are fixed into the glass, so they're not going to fall out and go missing or fall under the table or whatever the case may be. So that's a really nice aspect of it. I really do like that. You've also got this black trim around the glass itself, which hopefully will keep fingerprints and stuff like that away from it, so you can grab the side bits there quite easily, and when you close it you can clean the front and not worry about the back bit, so that's really good. The glass itself is a completely transparent glass. There is actually some protection on here, as you can see, and on the front as well, but if you peel that off you can see it is completely transparent. So for those of you that do like the transparent look, excellent. For those of you that like a smoke tint, you're out of luck, I'm afraid. So if we spin this around a little bit further, you can actually remove this side panel altogether, and it's on the hinge system. Again, a nice thing that they've added to this is the way that it actually fits back on. So you get the top one lined up first, and they are slightly offset, making it a little bit easier to put the side panel on, which I do appreciate. And for those of you that are wondering how far back does it go, it does actually appear to go pretty much the entire way round, up to about there. So depending on where you've got the PC mounted, obviously I think most people have had this on a desk or rather near a wall, so you're probably only going to get it to about there anyway, but it does go back to pretty much 180 degrees, maybe slightly more. It doesn't go all the way round, which actually I prefer, because normally you'd have things like your graphics card and maybe USB things sticking out the back, so this is a good solution in my opinion. So now we've got the side panel off, we can take a good look inside, and it's pretty much a pretty decent layout actually. Again, you've got support for EATX motherboards, and this section here is all pretty much flat. There's an indentation there for wiring your power supply, that kind of thing, so you can get in there nice and easily. Got a huge cutout at the back, which is on a slightly unusual angle, but I'm not too sure what the reason is that, but it does work pretty well, and you should gain access to most CPU backplates, etc. A couple of other nice things I've noticed is the gap between the motherboard top and the top of the case itself. There's a really decent gap there, so if you wanted to put in either a 280 or 240mm radiator in the top, you can do. Obviously, because you can put a radiator in there, you can put fans as well, so a combination of either a single or double 120mm fans or a single or double 240mm fans will fit in there with a lot of ease. On the top there is actually a removable magnetic dust filter, which is pretty much commonplace these days, but again, nice to see. The actual top section, when you're looking at it, the screw holes are recessed slightly as well, so that when you've got your fans or your radiator on there, you can still put the cover on the top and not have those kind of weird bumps and lumps on there, which again is a little minute detail, but something that I do appreciate. On the back, you've got 7 cutouts for PCI Express expansion, so if you are going with a larger board, you can do. And maybe if you're doing some kind of crazy SLI setup with your 3080s or 3090s, they should fit in there relatively easily, although I think realistically most people would go with a single GPU setup in this. But still, with a single GPU setup in there, you've got a nice amount of height between the GPU and the base area, so the airflow coming in from the front should draft up towards the GPU very nicely. And actually there are some cutouts in this bottom basement section which are angled as well, so any of the air from the bottom fan will be gently pushed upwards in towards your graphics card area, keeping that all nice and cool. Looking at the punch outs, there's a rather large punch out on the bottom for putting your cables through for things like your USB 3, your HD audio and your system connectors, all that kind of stuff. For those that are maybe considering putting a micro ATX board in here, there is actually some handy little cutouts there as well, so you don't have to run your cable straight from the bottom, so even if you are using a micro ATX board, you can still make it look nice and tidy by having your cables just pop out underneath where the motherboard level would be. As we said, on the back we've got this 120mm fan, which hopefully you can just about see there. So 120mm digital addressable RGB fan, which is matching to the front ones. And also another nice feature is because you've got the completely transparent glass on here, you don't get that weird look where you've got tinted glass and the rear RGB looks a little bit different from the front RGB. Because this is going to be relatively open, and also this section is going to be relatively open, they're all going to look the same color, which again is another bonus. More punch outs at the top, so we've got a nice big punch out section here for running cables through for your fans or your radiator, etc., or maybe your EPS connector for your motherboard, so that's all really nice. And everything, again, as you'd expect with Kolink being a quality brand, everything's nicely rounded off and there's not going to be any cut fingers. Well, you'd think not anyway. Moving slightly forward, again, another cutout there. You've got some mounting areas on the top for hard drives and other things. Moving towards the front, there's 2 sections here, which you can mount SSDs on the back. There's tons of rooms for storage in here, there really is. So although most people these days are tending to opt more for M.2 drives, those of you with 2.5-inch drives, maybe from an old laptop or a modern SSD, or even the old-fashioned 3.5-inch spinning mechanical discs, there's plenty of room for those as well, which we'll see shortly. Going back to the front panel cooling, I like to see that this is all kind of blocked off, so the fan is going to be directing air straight in. Also at the bottom there is a smallish gap at the bottom, so if you did want to put a radiator in there, you would have to go for a relatively slimline radiator, or alternatively, if you wanted to move the fans slightly back away from the mesh, so it's not quite pressed up against it, you could take these fans out and actually mount them behind, which I may actually end up doing. So that is pretty much it for the internal layout, which yeah, for me ticks all the boxes. Moving around to the rear, pretty much usual setup here. We've got this retention arm here for your PCI Express expansion. The one thing that does let this case down, in my opinion, which isn't a deal breaker by any means, but these PCI Express blanking plates are the ones that you have to fold and bend out. They don't actually give you any other ones in there to replace them should you break them out. Again, it's not the end of the world, but it would be nice to see removable or replaceable slots in this area. Where you've got your I/O, this is all nice and easy to access, and again, it's all nicely cut out, so there's no sharp edges, etc. You've got a little bit of adjustment on the fan on the rear, so it is a 120mm fan. You can't put anything bigger in there. You could, if you want to, replace this with a 120mm AIO cooler. Plenty of room to do that. And you've got quite a lot of adjustment up and down. And also they've added the extra screw holes above and below if you have a slightly larger radiator. Power supply basement, pretty much usual deal. You can get up to a 240mm radiator in there, which is awesome. And I didn't actually mention graphics card wise, you can put a graphics card in there of up to 370mm, which is absolutely huge. And as regard to your air cooler, if you want to put a larger air cooler in here, it will support up to 160mm units, so plenty of depth there. Moving around to the side panel, not a great deal of interest here. It's a very standard panel, and it's nice to see that it's actually completely flat. You do see some manufacturers putting these weird bulges in the side, which I personally don't like, so this works absolutely perfectly for me. The steel itself is pretty decent. There's a little bit of flex there, but not a great deal. So now looking at the back section, again, we've got tons of room in here for cable management. There's at least about 3/4 of an inch, maybe slightly more, thereabouts. So cable management is going to be absolutely easily. And also the finish is really nice. Kath just mentioned it actually in between takes. The actual finish on this is really nice. It isn't a gloss finish, it's more of like a satin matte black, but it's not a pure black. It's kind of like, I guess you kind of almost like a charcoal look to it. It's not completely black, but certainly does look very nice and actually looks very premium considering it's a relatively inexpensive case. So looking at the punch outs from the rear, so we've got this large cutout here, again, perfect for your 8-pin EPS connectors, and you could probably get a couple through there at the same time. Really nice opening there, do like that a lot. You've got some tie down points here as well for cable management. This cable here coming through is one of the cables from the RGB fan. Now you see it's got the 6-pin connector, but we'll take a look at the RGB setup in a minute. You can also put in, as I said, you can put the SSDs in here, so that's a really nice place. Nice option for you. Again, you've got loads of room for putting SSDs. There is a section here which you can screw into, and also there, so you can put 2 SSDs or 2.5-inch drives there. You can put one there, and also at the bottom we've got this cage area, so you can put 2 3.5-inch drives in there, or it's got the mounting brackets there, so you can actually put in 2.5-inch drives. So realistically, overall, you're looking at 2 3.5-inch drives and 3 additional SSDs, so one here, one here, one here. Or if you wanted to, you could have 5 SSDs or 5 2.5-inch drives in those sleds quite easily. Plenty of room, loads of room for your storage. Punch outs and cutouts, again, we've got this nice angled section here for putting your main power connector in for your motherboard, and also maybe USB 3 connectors if they're on that side, or maybe even SATA connectors if you're using those. Again, all of these cutouts are really nicely done and rounded off, so no cut fingers. A couple of pass-through points here, so if you're going to put a radiator in or maybe change the orientation of the fans, you can put the wires through there nice and easily. The main wire-in bundle for your I/O comes through and is quite nice, and you can tuck that into this front section, keeping all that out of the way. And on this section you have got a USB 3.0, which also actually converts to a USB 2 as well. So if you don't have a USB 3 on your motherboard, maybe a slightly older board, you can just hook it up onto a standard USB 2. Obviously you won't get the transfer speeds, but you still get to use your ports, which is awesome. Also you get the HD audio connection, you get a USB connection, and also you get your standard front panel connection. So you've got power switch, reset switch, hard drive LED, and power LED. In this basement section we've got our accessories pack, which we'll take a look at shortly. I thought I'd address as well that you've got these cables here. So these are the cables from the fan. And normally when you'd get this case as a retail unit, you'd have your fan controller stuck in this position here. Now I've deliberately taken it off just to make things a little bit clearer so you can see what's going on, and also so we can take a closer look at the controller. But also another thing is, it's probably going to be a good idea to mount your system in there, get everything connected up, and kind of see where the wires lie. You don't have to mount it in this section here. You can mount it wherever you want to. If you want to, you could tuck it away in a drive sled. There's lots of choices available. The only thing really limiting you is the length of the cables. I'm thinking possibly I might mount the controller up there. The only thing being then is the controller actually getting the wires to power it, which again could be a little bit challenging depending on your power supply and your cable management skills. So in this basement section, there's a slightly raised section for your power supply to keep it off the deck. There is also a dust filter in the bottom, which is one of those kind of usual flat ones which just peel off. So that's pretty easy. I would have liked to have seen a removable plastic one on some kind of tray or caddy, but again, it's one of those things that you don't really see it, and it doesn't really do much other than filter your power supply, so that's absolutely fine. One slight downside, which I did notice, is this drive cage. It is actually riveted in top and bottom, so unfortunately, if you have got a larger power supply or you've got extra cables you need to manage, this is actually fixed in. You could, if you wanted to, you could drill those rivets out and remove it in its entirety. Again, just one of those things that you don't really want to have to do. Would have been nice for them to swap out the rivets for screws, just for ease of use and to make it a little bit more user friendly. So I think that is pretty much it for this back section. Very functional, does what it needs to do, plenty of room for cable management. I would have personally liked to see more of these tie down points. There isn't a massive amount of them. So you've got some sections here, here, here and here, which you can put cable ties through. You've got a couple there and some at the top there. I'd like to have seen a few more just dotted around, but again, if you're into your cable management and you're clever with your cable ties, or even you get those little sticky pads, you can stick it on pretty much anywhere on this flat surface and you can take your cables where you need to. So that's it for the inside there. So let's take a quick look at the accessories bag and see what we get in here. So there is the Kolink RGB controller, digital RGB. So this can take up to 10 fans, which is way in excess of what you could probably fit in here anyway. There's also 2 additional ports on the top, which you can add in LED strips if you wanted to. These are custom pins, so you will need to get them from Kolink. Again, links will be in the video description. This is nice and easy to use though, so you've got one port which is slightly different coloured. You've got white connector on there, so that is your primary connection. So if you don't have a fan connected to there, the fans will basically PWM up to whatever speeds they want to. That is the one that gives the motherboard its signal, and it does that by a fly lead, which is on here somewhere, which is this one here. So you've got 2 fly leads coming off. You've got your PWM connector, which goes to your motherboard for fan control, and also you've got your digital RGB, which is your traditional 5-volt 3-pin, and also it's got a small fly lead on there to give you that gigabyte style control. Again, you don't have to connect it to your motherboard. If your motherboard doesn't have digital RGB, you can use the really handy remote control, which we'll take a look at now, which is in here somewhere. So the remote control comes with a little pamphlet or a little guide to tell you what all the buttons do, but it's relatively self-explanatory. So again, you've got your guide there, it tells you what is going on. And you've got kind of usual suspects remote control, which takes a single CR2032 battery. On the remote control, you've got the usual stuff. So motherboard or PC motherboard, so that switches between automatic control and using the remote itself. So quite easy to go through. On or off, so you can turn the whole lot on or off. You've got fan speed up and down, modes, speeds, various colors, etc. And at the bottom you've got the PWM button, so that switches between PWM mode and using the remote control. Again, when you press the buttons, it normally overrides them anyway, so again, lots of flexibility, lots of things you can do with that. There is also on this unit a 2-pin connector as well, so you can wire it up to your reset switch. So if you want to control the lights via the reset switch on the case, you can do nice and easily. Obviously, if you've got any other RGB components, such as your motherboard, etc., then it won't change those as well, but it will change the lights. So if you've got motherboard again without any RGB control, you can do it that way. So very, very flexible. Again, normally this would have come with a sticky pad on the back, but I've removed mine just for demonstration purposes. The one thing which is a downside of this, which is unfortunate, is a Molex connector. Again, it's not a good deal breaker, but it would be nice to see a SATA connector in there, just so you don't have to have an additional Molex on your power supply if it's a modular one. But these days, a lot of power supplies have a Molex and a SATA on the same strip, so it's not the end of the world. Moving back to the accessories bag, so you've got some cable ties in there for your building, and actually, I stand corrected, there are some replacement backplates, actually 3 of them, which is pretty unusual that you get 3 replacement backplates. So again, if you are going to put in a triple slot card, you can bend those out and replace them with these very easily, or maybe a 2-slot card and maybe a PCI Express Wi-Fi card, that kind of thing. So you do get those included. That's a really nice thing to see. There's also some rubber grommets in there, mountings for when you put in hard drives, etc. in, and you get the usual things. So you get your screws and also a BIOS speaker as well. So if you're connecting up a system for the first time and you're not too sure if it's going to work and you haven't got debug LEDs, you can plug in your BIOS speaker and check the beeps to see what the problem is. Also nice to see in there, there's some extra long screws as well, which are used for mounting fans to radiators. So again, if you want to use the included fans with a standalone radiator, you can do very, very easily. All very good. So let's take a look at the bottom of the case. So on the bottom, pretty much standard deal. So you've got rubberized feet on the bottom, which do raise the case up about 3/4 of an inch off the deck. Also, you've got this removable filter for your power supply. Again, I'm not a particular fan of these, but I guess they do get the job done, and they then can put the money into other areas of the case. So yeah, totally fine, does the job. As you can see on the bottom, no screw area to take out the cage, which again is unfortunate. There are rivets there which are accessible, so if you wanted to drill that out for modification, you could do very, very easily. Moving back up to the top section, so pretty much again, usual deal here. So you've got your power switch, which is a normal, nice clicky switch. You've got your hard drive activity and your power LED, headphone and microphone jack, a pair of USB 2.0 and a USB 3.0, and also you've got a slightly recessed reset switch, which is nice. Say if you accidentally reset in when you put your coffee on the top, or just moving your hands across to grab a USB stick. So that's quite a nice feature, I do like that. Again, we've got this removable magnetic filter on the top, nice and easy to take off and clean. And as you can see there, you've got all the mounting areas for 120, 140, 240 and 280 size fans, radiators, etc, etc. It isn't particularly offset from the motherboard, but because of the fact that it's quite high off the actual motherboard base plate, you shouldn't have any issues with clearance there. But again, when we do our live build, we will look into that in a little bit more depth and take some measurements. Overall, I think this is a really nice little case. Does the job. Well, it's actually not a little case, it's actually quite a big case, but it is pretty much ticking all the boxes. You've got ventilation through your semi-mesh front, all the fans are included, you've got the controller, you've got the remote control. So yeah, this is a pretty decent package overall. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to put this all back together. I'm going to put a power supply in there just so you can see what the RGB LEDs are like, and then I'll wrap up with my final thoughts. Okay, so here we are with the case illuminated, and I think it looks absolutely amazing. I have tried to get the camera settings right so it looks as good to you guys as what it does to me. It's still a little bit off, it doesn't really do it justice, but you can get a very good idea of what it's like. You can quite easily see the dual ring there, and also the LEDs and RGBs in the middle and also on the outside, and you can get some fantastic patterns. Now currently this is just set to auto with the remote control. I haven't got a motherboard in here, as you can see, and also I've left the front panel off just so you can actually get a really good look at these to see what they're like actually completely naked. I think they look absolutely amazing. These fans are great. So on the motherboard, or sorry, on the remote control rather, you can do various things. So you can turn the fans up and down, etc. with the controls on the bottom. So if we turn it on, press the minus button, that will turn them off because they were in low speed anyway. And again, you see it just looks absolutely brilliant. Press the fan plus button, and you can go through and cycle the speeds. There's only a couple of speeds, the high and the low. And actually, I think, is that on the highest setting? That is now on the highest setting. So now, on the highest setting, they're spinning, I think, around about 1400 RPM. On the low speed, around about 700. So on the low speed, totally silent. On the high speed, you can definitely hear some noise, but it's mostly the actual speed of the air going through. You can hear like a whooshing of air. The fans themselves are actually very well dampened with the rubber grommets and all that kind of stuff. And I think it actually looks brilliant. So let's turn that off now. It's very easy to do from the remote control. And you can go through, change colours. So if you want to, you can go through the different modes. So there's a mode button, so you can cycle through the various modes that are available. And actually, I really do like the effect that the dual ring does. Slightly kind of offset from the inside to the outside, which I do like. So you can change all the colours, go through, etc. And go on to the various patterns. I do like that on the white. I think that's a very nice look. It's a really kind of pristine white as well, very clean looking. So then you go through the multiple colours. Pretty much the usual deal for these kind of RGB controllers. So you've got various different options, pale green with pink. Where's my favourite? I do like the kind of Miami Vice, which is kind of like this thing. I think there is another one as well, which is a little bit pinker. Let's go through. That's the one. I love this setup, I really do. So you've got that kind of like hot red and the kind of neon blue almost. This for me looks absolutely brilliant. You can get some really, really nice, stunning colors. Again, you can go through all the various settings. If you go into auto, it'll just go through and it'll cycle through them all. So like an attract mode. Again, you've got lots of options there. You can have static colors, etc. I do like that one. Like a kid in a candy store. So then you've got your kind of like your RGB type effect, which isn't quite RGB, it's slightly off RGB. There's some other colors in there as well, which I quite like that. So if you've got maybe a certain keyboard and mouse setup, which has got a slightly different RGB setup, this is a really good option for that. Then you've got your traditional kind of RGB settings, your unicorn puke, etc., and various combinations thereof. Then you've got obviously plain colors if you want to use plain colors. There's tons and tons of options available on the remote control. Also, if you just want to go simple, you can just press the button. So white gives you the bright white, and that is a super bright white, it really is. You've got options for pink, orange, oh sorry, red. That's a yellow, believe it or not, sort of like a yellowy green. That is orange, and that is orange as well. So if you've got a gigabyte setup and you want to go for an orange and black build, then you can do that quite easily. And you can go through, I think you can actually go through some of the colors manually there, so lots and lots of options. Yeah, plenty of things you can do. I'm surprised my Kolink in the background isn't going crazy with me pressing these buttons, but the remote is slightly different. I've got a couple of cases all which use remote controls in here, and they're all reacting slightly differently with this remote control. So yeah, they don't all work with each other. You can have as well if you want to. You can dim the brightness to get your particular lighting style. That's on the lowest setting. And that is on the brightest. Again, PWM control, fan control. If you don't like it at all, you can just turn the whole lot off and it turns on the one in the background. Absolutely brilliant. Let's turn that one off and turn that back on. So there we go. There is our case back on. Again, press auto and it'll just go through and do the kind of unicorn puke and all the other things. Again, if you want to, you can control this all from your motherboard, etc. Or if you wire up the reset switch, you can do it from there and just go through the various lighting cycles. You can't control the fans from there. You can control the fans from the PWM pass-through or the remote control, not from the reset switch for kind of obvious reasons, I guess. So I'm going to put the front panel back on now so you can see what it looks like with the front panel on, and you'll see the difference. So if you're not really massively into RGB, but you do like a kind of stealthy RGB, I think this could be the look. So from a front on there, you can see what it looks like. And again, going through the settings, so if you want your hot pink or you want your green or just a bright white, it all looks really nice. And again, because you're going to have that clear tempered glass side panel on the side, all of the colors are going to look exactly the same at the front and also in the rear as well. So I think that's going to pretty much wrap this one up. Again, have a look so you can see what the lights are like on the inside. So again, plenty of light diffusing through. They are illuminated actually on the back as well, and also because these fan blades are opaque, it does let a lot of light in. So maybe if you haven't got an RGB motherboard but you want to add a little bit of bling to it, this is definitely a good option. Anyway, that has been the Kolink Phalanx version 2. I've been Mike, this is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To. Oh, and actually, question for the day, what is your opinion on slotted mesh? Do you like it? Is it something that you can work with? In the scheme of things, for me, I actually quite like this sort of slightly more muted look. I think it looks very stylish, but again, each to their own. Some people prefer that completely closed off front panel. Some people prefer a completely open mesh. And I think this is actually a nice kind of in between. So again, let us know what you think in the video comments. We will be doing a live build in this in the coming days. We'll be doing a case swap, so Kath's computer is going to be put into here, so if you want to join us for that, again, don't forget to click on the subscribe button and the chime icon. You'll be notified of all future video releases. But I think this is going to wrap this up. I've been Mike, this is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and hopefully we'll catch you in the very next video. Thanks for watching.